Like one of the things that engineers have to deal a lot is false positive. So as long as we are not able to get rid of false positive, I don't think any type of auto remediation will be actually helpful. How we distinguish a real vulnerability between a false positive? The engineer that has built like the piece of code, or the engineer that is knowing the infrastructure, knows if it's actually the case or not. Many errors or mistake that a SaaS tool is raising. A lot of them might be like flagged as false positive because that's the code the house is meant to make, or something. Even like in testing environment, the code has been like flagged, or maybe it's an internal tool which you kind of like apply a different concept of like security because it's not exposed, but still a tool will flag it. Yes, we can remediate everything, but is it really what we want? Or we would like actually to target specifically what are the like critical things.
Welcome to the Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host and AppSec enthusiast and growth manager at Escape, an API discovery and security platform. Today, I'm joined by Diego Sempreboni, a senior application security engineer at Pleo. Diego earned his PhD in computer science, specializing in security at King's College London. After realizing his passion lay in solving real-world problems, he transitioned from academia to product and application security, gaining valuable experience in various fintech companies in the UK. Quick special announcement for the Elephant and AppSec. In November, we are hosting the first Elephant and AppSec virtual conference. Join us and hear from speakers who aren't afraid to share their strong opinions. But now, back to this episode. In this episode, we discuss the key differences between academia and engineering in security, and why vendors should focus on creating tools that do less but do it better, tools that actually help to fix problems. We also explore the challenges of automated threat modeling and remediation, and why trust within the company is crucial for AppSec engineers. And there is much more. This episode is perfect for anyone weighing the choice between security research and engineering, or for newcomers eager to learn more about AppSec. Dive right in. Hi, Diego. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. It was actually super fun to meet you, firstly in person and then on a podcast. It's always been a more like the other way around, I would say. But yeah, this time it's like this. So it's actually very nice, to meet someone in person beforehand. And I'm glad we had the conversation as well, and I learned more about your background and your passions as well, and what you think, what's the biggest elephant in the room and AppSec. And you're coming also from you actually switch, from security research background to application security engineering. So that's very interesting, because that's not always the case. So it's a very interesting background, and I really want others to learn more about that. So, what did make you switch?
Well, let's start from kind of not the beginning, because that would be very, very long. But I have actually a master in software engineering and security, which were kind of like trying to, with the knowledge that I have now, they were actually trying to teach how to produce secure coding. And that I think is something that makes me passionate about the security engineering part. And of course, then, as you mentioned, I shift as a security researcher to application security engineer, because after that, after my master, I did a PhD in cybersecurity here in London, and where like I put my skills more on the security part of the subject, trying to dig deeper into security protocols, network protocols, like security engineers, in the sense that how we can help engineers to write good code, secure code, and prevent potential like threats. And then that's kind of like I think the two combined words are actually what an application security engineer is doing, is trying to to match the engineering part of side with all the security knowledge, and that's kind of like the outcome when you mix the two worlds. Then why I kind of like did this shift? Well, in academia, especially when you do a lot of security research, you end up with a lot of theoretical and then very less practical outcomes. The idea of wanting to produce more hands-on tools or hands-on contribution that were actually useful for the outside world, because that's what that's what people in academia should try to aim, not only fix their mind only on the theoretical aspect, but also try to go in the outside one and say, okay, how can I be useful there? And that's what I felt so much that this was missing in my journey. So this is why I at some point decided that it was the time probably to see what is the outside world and how can I put my skills into serve the community.
Yeah, I think it's very hard, to switch this mindset from just being like having one project that you're really passionate about. Sometimes, you don't really, it doesn't help with anything. Like, I can, relate to that. Like some projects that were, when I was studied fluid mechanics, like analyzing the drop of liquid on the surface, which, you don't really see, why you're doing that. So I can totally relate, but at the same time you told me like what you enjoyed there is teaching other people, and kind of right now you mentioned as well you want developers to write secure code.
Yeah.
So how did this interest and passion for teaching and wanting developers to be better in what they're doing translated in what you're doing now?
So everything kind of started with the fact that I had the opportunity to teach students during my studies, trying to like several courses, not only network security. Then I happened with programming, so I was teaching them how to use an IDE, how to produce code, etc., etc. Is basically engineers in any company are, let's say, have like of course like lack of security knowledge because they don't come from this type of background. They know how to write good codes for sure, but then the pieces that is missing is always trying to ask what could go wrong in that particular piece of code that maybe they are producing. And that's where an application security engineers comes handy, where we go with them and we encourage and guide them through thinking of those like nasty scenarios. Recently, I had the chance to work on some piece of code where we were like working on a functionalities for that would require an extra careful approach, and that's and that was part of our backend functionality. We discovered that there was like some cases that were missing, and of course, like the first question was like, okay, why the engineers are giving for granted that this is the only flow that is going through. Of course, like we try to expand their scenario and say, well, what if this is not happening? Because for their mind it was like, okay, that's for sure, that's for granted, but not all the time. For instance, let's say a front end is able to block whatever it goes to the back end. Maybe someone is intercepting questions. Sometimes it's just like modifying or calling directly APIs, and that's where we need to also be able to explain to them that there are those possibilities.
Okay. And for example, how did you learn initially, like how everything is connected in a way? Where, because how do you approach, the projects like that? I guess with the threat, we talk about like with the threat
Yeah.
modeling, right? So where you actually have to think, okay, this is the part of the project is front end, the part of the project is back end, how it's everything connected, how the workflow is going to work, but like where should we think
Yeah.
about security?
Well, everything started with an idea. So when the teams are come together and like engineers lead PMs and like some other engineers come together and just like, then we need to do these things. How we can do it, and then
Mhm.
they I don't know, they produce diagrams, they comes with whatever possible way to with a solution. And it's in this phase that is important for them um, to make realize that there are several components part of the what they want to realize. It's not only back end, it's not only front end. There are other all the other aspects that comes around of those two
Yeah.
parts of the software, and that's where we can guide them. So from the beginning, very early on, instead of just like waiting until the end, because for instance, an example that I mentioned before, we did this code review only at the end when let's say the product was ready to be shipped, and that's we have to come back and tell the engineers, hey, can you give it a look at this? So it's kind of like redoing what we could have like prevented.
Yeah, it's like twice as much work, you know?
Yeah, and of course, like the time and the energy that an engineer is spending is very like important. So we don't want them to do things twice. While they, if we are able to capture those things much early on, maybe just exploring up immediately after the code has been written, etc., etc. Not when all the components are already together, and then you just like need to try to understand if I don't know there are enough blocking mechanism to avoid nasty scenarios maybe for the backend.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it takes, I think, time to actually implement it, you know, within the culture of the organization, like this way of thinking in a sense, because it's, yeah, not every engineering org is going to be open, you know, to actually sit
Yeah.
down and think about through things. But you shared, you know, fun ways to change it that culture. So I don't know if you can share it with the listeners as well.
Well, absolutely. I'm very happy to. I mean, it's based on the human nature. We tend to remember things that are very funny or are presented in a different way. So I
Mhm.
could kind of like be the very boring teacher and just like go and explain to the engineers why they don't have to do these things, which is probably is gonna stay there. They will just fix it and then they will forget it. But otherwise, I can try to make this approach a bit better and targetize to in a way that they would remember with some I don't know presentations with interesting like, example. One on the top of my mind, it's not something new, but the fact that we remember very well examples from movies, TV series, or like very fun examples from the day-to-day things that happen to us. Those are actually very good example that we can bring to them to
Mhm.
remember. I don't know why why they need to encrypt a message. I don't know, or like why they want to prevent, I don't know, any modification. Those are we have examples. There are many movies, TV series, Mr. Robot, like I don't know, not only techie movies, but also
Think
one
like
that
TV shows, right? Like the Office, you know, or Friends. You can always find, you know, some
yeah.
example that can could have been prevented. You know, the classic one. We were. I don't know if you watched Friends, but like we were on a break with Rachel and Ross. Like maybe they could have done some threat modeling before that to, like,
Yeah.
you know, and
we, we
avoid
said
that.
we said all the time we every time we go out from our apartments, we kind of like do threat modeling for everything. We go out in the street and we know what are the risks, and we kind of like mitigate them in some ways. So let's be careful about the cars, let's be careful about this, and we try and find, and we are actually applying this naturally. We
Mhm.
just need to make the engineers do the same with
Yeah.
their piece of code. And for some, I mean, one of the famous images. I mean, there are many examples. Like you mentioned the in our conversation, I mentioned to you the Thanksgiving threat modeling, where like they try to see what are the possible risks to not have like the turkey ready for Thanksgiving, but also I don't know. Other famous images are like the Batman threat models that you can find easily out there. The In a security conference that was Home Alone, I took the idea and just like, okay, for the Christmas security champion program meeting, I'm gonna show them to do threat modeling through like Home Alone, and like I was projecting like a short clips of like every single threat that I was identifying, and the feedback was very positive, because that they were gonna remember, maybe not technically, but they will remember the spoofing we talked, the tampering, the information disclosure, those type of methodologies that are necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Home Alone
Yeah.
example that we discussed, and I think like that indeed the human aspect is very important, and fun and engaging, and thinking about like it from a little bit psychological perspective as well, because I think in the application security, understanding the psychology, understanding the stakeholders, it's very important. And I think it's something that's probably not going away, anytime soon, even though everyone
Mhm.
tries to automate
Yeah.
everything that's, possible. Because like you were pretty skeptical, when we discussed, automate threat modeling. Why actually you think that it will never, at least in the nearest future, be an option?
Well, definitely we are not ready yet to get rid of like AppSec engineers in replacement for AI, but we can imagine. Let's do this mental exercise. Let's try to imagine that we actually have an AI capable to take all several aspects of like a threat modeling session. So we is able to from a diagram to understand the system, and then is able to capture what are the possible threats, and then is producing like a kind of output that I don't know, you can take it as it is and just like go and try to fix those things. Is this gonna be enough? Probably not, because these like the everything starts from the overview of the AI that has on based on the system that we want to make it more secure. And this is coming from what? From a human being that has produced a sequence diagram or a data flow diagram, and this is very difficult to make it in a standard way, because everybody has his own way to give more information, less information, and then maybe there is a context that has not been added. Maybe there is a, I don't know, yeah, this message is has other sub messages inside. So the AI will not be able to capture all the like shades of the system.
Yeah.
While a trained AI security engineer is actually might have like a niche. So this message, this there is something that it doesn't feel right. Can you tell me more about it? And so you have a back and forth with the engineers about what these things, or like about other small aspects that a machine will not be captured based on a single human input. You need a couple iterations, and then you're going to be able actually to create a very good one threat model outcome. That's why I'm a bit skeptical in the near future to have this. Plus,
Yeah.
I still want my job, so I would like to keep like having this interaction with the engineers.
Yeah. Do you think it also comes from the principle that I hear, the phrase quite often from security professionals: trust but verify, in a sense? So that's very, applicable to the situation that you can trust the tool, you can trust the solution, you can trust people. I think it's mainly applicable to people, of
Mhm.
course, but yeah, you need to verify. You need to make sure that
Yeah,
something is done right. And it's also like, yeah, very hard to do, when you don't like, it's a new technology, it's something just comes out, you don't know how it's trained, you know what's been developed behind that. And I think with any new technology, it needs some time, to get to
that's true. I
use.
mean, you're right, and in addition to the fact that we are gathering so much more information than a single like AI algorithm or something that when I was actually talking this week how we can tweak a bit our threat modeling process in order to make it more efficient. And the idea was like, okay, but why we don't take the chance when we have those sessions to also like bring more information to the engineers, so we know the status of their services, maybe something that has already been deployed, or and they are adding a new functionality. Maybe the information that I get from other tools, like let's say Wiz, CodeQL, or SameGraph, or whatever, why I don't bring those information to them? Maybe they are unaware of the status of their service, and I can bring those information to them to enrich the threat modeling session with a much more, in order that they will go away with, oh, I have a good documentation about I'm like trying to what I'm trying to develop and need to patch, but also I know what the status of my other services, or like this particular one, and then everything is happening 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, which is not an amount of time that is going to be wasted if we are thinking about it, because we are saving a lot of time. We are bringing information to them, and of course, like someone could argue why this information don't automatically goes to the team.
Yeah.
That's part of like the relationship that an AppSec engineer has to have with the engineers. We need to be the friendly. I would define myself the friendly neighbor of the AppSec engineer, just to take the Spider-Man quote, because we really need to build a relationship where when I'm gonna see like some criticalities, I know that I can go to them and ask them to dedicate some time. And of course, like if we have a good relationship, I know that my request is gonna be like accepted positively. But if there is like this how you see in some companies the frictions between engineers and security teams, where every security request is being seen like this is annoying, this is making me waste my time, or this is not going to work organically in a company.
Yeah, but do you think it's also like just a relationship with engineers, but it's also maybe the engineering leaders that should have this mindset? Because if you just come to the engineer and they have, big backlog, they go back to their manager, to their leadership, and they say, okay, I got this request, I really think we should work on it, but for engineering leader, it's not somehow the priority how to fix it in development. So how do you fix that?
Well, but I think it was one of the things we discussed when we had like the chat in person.
Yeah.
Of course, like it's not only a matter of the engineers, but it's like actually involving everybody. And this comes like trying to build a trust inside the company as as the figure of AppSec. So
Yeah.
you need to be a positive figure that people who are gonna like listen, and then of course with the help with your line manager, with other more senior like engineer, you kind of like can show them why we really need to operate in some way, or like we need to prioritize other things, because it's true, sometimes we think too much about hey, is this like cost effective, or this is like we needed to do it very soon. Maybe not, but I need to explain to you why it's important, and you need to trust me that this is why probably trust for an AppSec engineer inside a company is very important.
Yeah, you need to manage up, you need to manage cross-functionally.
Yes.
Yes, it's a lot of work, and a lot of work that's not seen, behind the scenes always,
Oh, yeah.
probably. Yeah, because sometimes it can just be, okay, you have these tools that you need to implement, check the boxes, but like all the work you need to put in the relationship building is just, yeah, very hard. And
Mhm.
regarding the tools you also mentioned to me, yeah, that's like you have some strong opinions about them, because some you really did not like based on your experience, like I think of AppSec, but some you really love, like SamGraph, especially I think these are the tools that highlight quite a lot in their messaging shift left approach. Like if you go on SamGraph site, you can see like directly shift left,
Yeah,
which
yeah, yeah.
controversial terminology, but like what makes tool very effective and makes you actually love to use on your day
I
your
I
week.
think a tool is very effective when it doesn't make too much mess with the information that is providing.
Okay.
So if we are able to, one of the issue with with tools in general is that they provide a lot of information and they add functionalities, and then you ended up with I don't know, so many informations that you cannot because you are an AppSec engineer or a security engineer, you know how to navigate them. But
Yeah.
then in the moment where you need to provide those information to people that are less familiar with those tools,
Yeah.
is very difficult. Tools should be able to provide ways to give the engineers, because that's the ultimate. I can be a security engineer and have the tool for my own sake, but at the end, I'm not going to be the one that is going to fix 100% of the things. So we need to have a way to give engineers an overview of the specific information they need to
Mm,
do the fixing, to do the tweaks that they need to do. And then otherwise, the tool, whatever tool, it cannot be effective.
mm.
Producing too much information is just going to create so much noise. And
But
probably I'm stating the obvious, but it's still something very difficult, because with the fact that the tools keep adding functionality, they forget sometimes that simple is better.
mm, yeah, I mean, for sure, the less is better. Like there's actually a book, I don't know if you know, but the actor Dieter Ramsel, he's a famous German designer, which is like it's just his principle that I think can be applied for sure to a lot of things, and a lot of like in a lifestyle as well, and security tooling in a sense. But like speak about vulnerabilities, because we talked about AI replacing potential application security engineer job, your job. Do you think like it can replace an engineer job in a sense? Because like if you automate like you remediation, imagine you don't have, even if like a relationship is important, but for you to make your life easier, you don't have to go to engineer or check if like actually this remediation part can be entirely automated.
Mhm.
It's feasible.
Well, very good question. I think really I thought about it, because, of course, like one of the things that engineers have to deal a lot is false positive. So as long as we are not able to get rid of false positive, I don't think any type of auto remediation will be actually helpful, because having like how we distinguish a real vulnerability between a false positive,
Mhm.
that's something that at the moment the engineer that has built like the piece of code, or the engineer that is knowing the infrastructure, knows if it's actually the case or not.
Yeah.
Many like errors or mistake that a SaaS tool is raising,
Hmm.
a lot of them might be like flagged as false positive, because that's the code the house is meant to make, or something. Even like in testing environment, the code has been like flagged, or maybe it's an internal tool which you kind of like apply a different concept of like security because it's not exposed, but still a tool will flag it. And okay, yes, we can remediate everything, but is it really what we want? Or we would like actually to target specifically what that are the like critical things. For instance, here at Pleo, we are trying to like decommission some services, and trying to evolve in a better like architecture. And of course, like engineers come to me and just said, okay, we are decommissioning this service in like 6 months, but I don't want to not apply any security patches. But of course, like I need to be careful, because if I'm gonna do it, I could potentially break something. So can you just let me know? Because of course, like the tool is suggesting so many, like I don't know, the patches to be updated or something. Can you let me know specifically which one you believe they are critical and they're actually worth to work on? And of course, like of the bunch of like 20, 30, only 4 or 5 are actually think something that we need to focus on. And this
Yeah.
is like something that it's still missing. It's very difficult to have. We are reaching that point.
Mm,
I'm seeing like some steps toward that, but I will still not trust 100% to enable this type of feature.
okay. Why do you think is it so difficult?
Because there are a lot of variables in the game. There are a lot of variables. It's not only the information that the tool is like actually providing, is actually the context, and the context is not like provided by the tool. It was not fetched by the tool. Is only the engineers knows the context of that particular piece of code, the functionality, infrastructure, etc., etc. So we need to take into account, and as long as we don't provide those information as
Mm,
well, kind of like we even like with the diagrams, like we are, if we think about engineering doing mermaid diagrams and trying to have a more standardized way to produce information. Well, those information then are going to probably be fetched by automatic tools, and that is going to be the way
yeah.
to, but we need to enrich as much as we can to have like this automatic way of fixing things, because there are still pieces missing.
Mm. And what, for example, you would like to, like, let's say we have diagrams. What else do you think we can enrich the tool with? Let's say we have this, magic tool in the future. We have,
Yeah. Well, it's definitely information about the code base, information that comes from the infrastructure, information that comes from the vision um, of the service that we are talking about. So yes, definitely the diagram, in order to for then the tool to get those information and go on only on the information that has inside. So let's say the feature that I'm developing as an engineer or with the engineers is composed by connecting 3 or 4 services. If I don't have this piece, the tool is gonna just be having like this type of information separately. It's gonna have the information of those 4 services, but then
yeah,
maybe is the connection of them that has an issue, and we need to tell the tool that there is a connection between them. And the only way to do it, of course, is like providing extra information, which is okay. You saw until here. I provided you extra information with diagrams. I provided you extra information with combining, I don't know, the code based, which we see nowadays with Wiz, for instance, that they integrate a GitHub connector to get more information from the code base. And as much as we can, we need those information if we want to reach effectively like potential like auto remediation.
mm, yeah. I think a lot of information will be necessary to make it for sure perfect from this for understanding, business specific context.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
will
for
be.
every business is different though,
And every business
because
is different. Yeah. So I think AI is going to need to learn kind of from scratch each time he scans different types of applications to be able to, decipher business logic. So we're working on this topic a lot at Escape. I'm trying to
Mhm.
understand the business specific of each API to be able to find the vulnerabilities. So
Yeah.
our research team did analysis based on a Microsoft Wrestler researcher that they've done for REST APIs, but we applied it to
Mhm.
GraphQL. For GraphQL, it was a little more specific, so we built it, from scratch, trying to understand business logic of GraphQL applications. But it took almost initially 2 years of
Oh
research
yeah.
and development before the first product was released to be able, to perfect the algorithm for GraphQL application, and it's still kind of continuous process. So it's very interesting, to see and try to understand, how it can be applied, and how it can be enriched, and whether or not we can achieve this perfect business logic understanding algorithm, for different applications in the future. There's always also a question, that I ask. I think among the listeners, there are people who have different backgrounds, different levels of seniority,
Yeah.
and maybe there are some who are still doing their masters, or PhD, like you initially, and what how advice would you give them if, let's say, they're now doubting, okay, should I consider, still career in security research? I'm not sure if I really want to be hands-on, or like actually becoming application security engineer. Like, what, pros and cons, should they wait?
Well, definitely the first one would be how much they want to engage with other people, because kind of like I feel being a security researcher, you spend most of the time thinking and working by yourself, and trying, and yes, you might interact with other people, and then that's the funny part, but then is your research, is your project, you move on with it.
Mm.
And I feel like that someone that does security research is kind of like a path where that is very similar to someone that wants to pen testing,
Mm.
because you spend a lot of time in front of a lab trying to crack a system, and it's kind of like you are by yourself in that, and trying to several approaches, and then when you find it out, maybe you find a vulnerability that has never been published, and then you raise a CV, etc., etc. So that's kind of like the approach. The other thing is that if you feel like you're more like into engaging with people,
Mm.
and that's where I'm standing. If you want to engage with people, guide them through the good and the bad, and what actually could happen, that's probably application security engineers can be something that might be very interesting, because it's not only a place where you interact, and every day is very different, because the problems are always like, despite I don't know, services in fintech are more or less like similar, let's say.
Mhm.
The problems that arise are always diverse, because the company might want to shift approaches, so you need to engage in different conversations, and you want um, to to guide the engineers in different ways. The teams are different, so that's the dynamic that I was mentioning, and that's what you get if you try to create, let's say, create this bridge between the security and the engineering.
Yeah, so you need to love to act with people, and I guess go into, local community. That's why I think in security there's so many, local community
Yeah,
meetups and conferences, because actually it's the industry where people love to, especially in AppSec,
yeah.
AppSec, and I think DevSecOps as well, because it's all about people. So you want to also feel like being a part of the community. You want to interact. You want to share your ideas, and yeah. So
and
that's,
you
I think,
And
very
you see
important.
in the and you see in the conferences. I've been recently in the info security Europe here in London. I was just walking. I was really, and someone stopped me and told me about. It was a startup, so I was not even like knowing this company at all. And they told me, "Oh yeah, we are thinking about this product, and we have a beta phase, and this is very interesting." And then I actually thought they are actually doing something very very cool, that they caught my eye and just like, well, maybe we can do a POC together, and etc., etc. And that's what the sense of community you were mentioning.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's just you discover so many new things every single
Yeah,
month. I don't know, because conferences happen quite a lot in
yeah.
security. For
Yeah,
sure.
we need to choose the right one, though.
Yeah. How do you choose the right one?
I don't know. I'm still, I'm still haven't been. I have to be honest. I haven't been in many of them. I mean, I'm in the sector. Let's say I'm in the industry sector for 3 years and a half now. So it's kind of like a very new to me. Like go to conferences, and I still want to go when I know that I can get something. So in this occasion, I was like exploring some ideas, and I wanted to talk with some vendors just to show myself and just like, hey, I'm the person you are talking to or from time to time during the meetings on Zoom. So that's what I was like going to do. The other thing is, well, when you have an idea, when you see like there is something lacking in your business, and you're just like, okay, that's probably the time where you can effectively go and see and talk with people and go in conferences. I don't kind of like the approach where I just gonna go there and browse and then if I don't have anything to bring at home.
Yeah. I mean, some people go for swag. I already
Yes,
see.
but then that's the bad thing, because then a conference is labeled as a swag conference, and people are gonna stop to go there, and it's really happening because
Yeah.
I recently like heard about this. Oh yeah, in that conference we. There were a lot of like people that just stopping you to scan your badge and give you a swag, and that's it. And that's not what it's not supposed to be, because we need the community. We need
Yeah.
the community, and a productive one. So not only like they check the box. Security should not be check the box.
Mm. Yeah, it should be more about exchanging the ideas or at least learning new things, or finding solutions to the problems.
Yeah,
And I think a lot about like finding solutions to the problems.
yeah.
And yeah, and I always ask one question at the end of the podcast: what kind of book would you recommend to the listeners?
What kind of book I would recommend to the listener?
Security one, or I mean, you can do general one as well.
Yes, yes. I think I recently had the chance to put my hands on a book called Project Zero.
Okay.
At this time, I forgot who wrote it, but I think it was I think it's very interesting book in the AppSec or like in general engineering. There are so many that my library is just exploding, and then I don't have time to go through all of them. New books being released every month. It's very difficult to catch up with them.
For sure, for sure. I think O'Reilly is very heavy.
Yeah, they're wild. They are wild, really.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's a good sign. So it's great. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was very fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot, and it was very fun talking to you and with our listeners too. Thank you so much.
It was very nice to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.